I'm here to share with you a little bit about WIDS, Worldwide Instructional Design System. We are recording this session, and again, it's a webinar, so you aren't able to speak, or you can talk all you want, but I can't hear you. So if you have anything you need to ask me, please raise your hand, and there's a question area. You can jot that down in the question area, and then I will try to look over there and make sure I'm not missing anything along the way. So what we're going to do today is kind of skip along through some of what WIDS is, some of our features and benefits, specifically one of our key solutions, which is designing programs and courses. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. What we're going to see today is we're going to see a little overview of kind of all the different modules in WIDS. We're going to look at specifically designing programs and courses, what the design purpose is, what our model is, and then some of the components for designing curriculum that are developed in WIDS and that you have access to. We've been around for a long time, since 1994. We were designed by users of the Wisconsin Technical College system. There's 16 districts in the state that have used WIDS since that time as well. We are part of their foundation of the Technical College system, their Instructional Design Division. We are a design system, instructional design system, not a learning management system and not a content management system. We like to say that we are quite robust. You'll find out as we get into the software and show a little bit of the features how robust we really are as a relational database, but secure, as web-based, and very user-friendly since we were designed by users. Oftentimes, community college instructors, who tend to be our primary target audience, are not educators with or they don't come with an education background, I should say, but they are tasked to educate, and so that is why we've been so useful in a two-year system, because we are very user-friendly for the faculty designing programs and courses. We're built on the performance-based learning model and the best practices for that. You'll see demonstrated throughout the presentation. And again, we are web-based, so all features of web-based software. We do have API, and so there's the ability for different kinds of integration, whether it's a cataloging software or another kind of software using API. So just a couple of the features about our system. All WIDS sites, when licensed, receive a unique site banner that identifies your college. So when your users come into the site, they know they're in the right place. It is hosted externally, and we also have the use of Active Directory, which is a way for you to import your users and have them update, whether they're new or leaving, seamlessly, so you don't have to keep going in and keeping track of who you need to add to the system. We have built-in site administration tools, which allow you, whoever you've designated as a site administrator, to set permissions for their users, for data editing and viewing within any kind of a project, to request specific reports that might want to look at curriculum across the board at your institution, or to establish some consistent notifications to users through email and even through the site. So users are ready to work when they enter, once the site administrator sets up how they want that system to work for the user. When a user enters our site, they have their own unique login and ID or password, and they have a page that will typically show any projects that they may be working on. In this case, you can see there's a program and a course for this particular user, and they can also see a specific role they've been given in that project, and look at the status of that project. They can automatically click on the project. These are live links, and it will open and take them right into that program or course. Curriculum is accessible to all users, so even if they don't have a role, they should be able to access any kind of course that you might have designated as active or ready for viewing. So they should be able to see that, even though they may not have a role to do anything in it. We also have a management piece within all of our programs and course database files. You can request approval. You can see reviews of pending approval or curriculums in review, and you need to see some comments about that. You're able to use our review and approval process if you so desire. You may have your own. We're able to work within the confines of that as well. And then also approve pending or approve pending deletion or expiration. So there's a lot of ways to control and manage curriculum in here as well. You can see here there's lots of filtering. So history is always up to date. Whatever happens in the software, whether a change has been made or added or an edit has been made, is documented in part of the history of that particular project. We refer to programs and or courses as projects. And you can see here some of the actions. You can filter by date. So you always have an accurate picture of what's gone on in a particular project. So a little bit about how the software actually works. Now we want to look at why we want to use WIDS for program design and courses. I'm going to kind of go through a little scenario, and I'll let you decide if you know the answer to why WIDS. So let's pretend that you have two new faculty. And the faculty are Frannie Faculty on the left and Tom Teacher on the right. They both have their unique styles of teaching, and maybe they've done it this way all along, or maybe they're new and they've gone through some WIDS training and they have a different way of approaching designing a course. So Tom Teacher teaches dental health safety. He can choose his textbook, and he has chosen it. He has made a schedule, and you can see here his schedule follows the chapters in the textbook. He's made sure that he's covered all of them. He's planned assessments, quizzes, a lot of quizzes, some checklists, maybe it's some chapter tests. More than likely they're associated with something that came with that textbook. So there's usually some kind of a keen little test bank that he's going to use as part of his assessment. And he's taught his class. He's ready to teach the class. He's made his PowerPoints for all the chapters. He's delivered well-organized 50-minute lectures that cover the content within that textbook. So that's his style. Frannie Faculty-Member also teaches dental safety. She's a big planner, and she has used WIDS to access, design, and develop her course. So she started with the big picture. She wants to know, how does that course relate to other courses in the program? Where is it? And am I assessing any program core competencies? So here she's looking at program core competencies or program outcomes. She sees the course that she wants to teach and whether it's introductory to that program or whether there's the competencies are going to be practiced, and they've kind of been introduced and we're well on our way toward assessment. So she wants to see a big picture of where the course might fit in the scheme of the program and how it relates to the program outcomes. She's examined the course outline. So she has developed a syllabus or a course outcome summary in this case with a description of the course, the credits. She's accessed it right from the WIDS database. She's able to see what's to be taught, the competencies, the content that needs to be delivered or taught to, which are the objectives, and she can even see the textbooks that she'll need to access in order to develop her individual or her learning plans and assessment plans. So this piece right here will guide her. This is a secure document that comes out of the WIDS software, and she's able to see where she needs to go in order to design good learning and assessment. Part of that framework that has come in is or addressing what the students need to learn. So this competency here is telling the student up front and telling her as she designs this particular course what her students need to learn. It'll also tell them through these performance standards how they'll be assessed right up here under these assessment strategies, and then also what they'll measure in those particular strategies. So she can start to design an actual assessment activity that will target these particular performance criteria. So no guesswork here, and all students will be measured against the criteria. She'll also know what content is embedded under that competency. So here are her learning objectives. Oftentimes these learning objectives follow along a textbook, but the textbook doesn't necessarily need to drive the objectives. And then she can plan her assessments. So she's beginning with that end in mind. She's designed her assessments targeting the competencies that were already part of that official course outline, and she has used WIDS to create scoring guides or checklists for assessing the criteria that was already part of that competency framework. She's able to create her learning plans. How will I teach this to my students? What are those engaging activities that I'll come up with? So she's used WIDS to create her learning plans, and she's also learned or used it to define what assessment activity will actually help them measure the competency. And since they already know that the criteria are under here as well, they'll know how they're going to be assessed, or what the criteria are that will be measured on that particular assessment. She can define her learning sources using the same textbook as Tom has and adding additional resources based on whatever's in her learning plans for teaching to that competency. Then she teaches that class. She has delivered her well-organized lectures that support the competencies and the plan that she's developed. She has learning activities that support her learning objectives, and she's assigned a well-planned performance assessment task. So does it really make a difference? Well, when Tom says students haven't learned and we're questioning why didn't they learn, his response might be, well, they didn't study or work hard enough, or I'm just not their favorite teacher. But Frannie might say, well, what competencies didn't they learn? She'll be able to go and look at the learning plans and the assessment tasks or the assessments that she planned for meeting that particular competency and see where there might have been some falling short, and be able to go back and look at how students learned that particular area. Maybe there's some activities that she needs to make more robust. Maybe the criteria aren't clear enough on the assessment. So she can look at how she taught it, what she taught, what assignments she required for the students to be able to meet that particular competency. And then how can she change it? And what best practices can she implement to improve student learning, which is ultimately our goal. In other words, what I say I'm going to teach, which is in your common course outline or syllabus, is what I teach in my classroom and is also what I assess through my projects, through my exams, through my performance assessments, whether it's a clinical observation or I'm watching a student do something or I'm actually looking at the project that they delivered with its measurable criteria. So Frannie has the ability to constantly look at ways to continuously improve. Was she clear about what she was trying to achieve in those outcomes? If she feels that there was a short sight or there was something that fell short in meeting the mark, she can go back and look at those assessments. She can go back and look at those activities. And she can design learning to achieve that. She can design assessments that will really assess that. And she can make changes to the course to improve her student learning. Well, I guess she's the princess. So the power of planning is I know what to teach, I know how I'm going to teach it, and I know when my students will have learned it. And then I can use the data I collect from student assessments or whatever data that I'm looking for to improve my teaching and learning. And WIDS does have the power to do that based on our performance-based learning model. So you may be familiar with how you designing curriculum at your institution. WIDS has used a performance-based learning model since we began in '94, and it looks a little bit like this. It looks like a linear approach, but we like to think it's really a holistic approach, and I'll explain that here in a minute. But defining what the performance is, the higher goals, the high-level performance, is key to designing program and even your courses. Defining high performance might be deciding which external or national standards need to be fed into your program to help drive what gets taught and assessed. It might be using the results of a DACOM or developing curriculum or occupational analysis. I want to see the duties and tasks that were approved and validated by those who are on that particular analysis team. Those might be the things that help feed what goes into defining the high performance of a specific program and its courses. And so defining those up front, maybe even your college core abilities or your gen ed program outcomes, all of those need to be established up front in order to drive program and course development. Then you can establish what the learners need to be able to do upon exit, whether it's a program, or do upon exit from a course. We call those outcomes. In this case, you're going to look at it as a competency, which is what we call course outcomes. And they basically, when you have them, they will touch those higher level outcomes. So nothing is really linear, check it off the list. Everything touches each other, making it a lot more holistic. Once you design a competency and you know what it is your learners need to learn in order to have met some of those high-level performances, then you can design the pathway toward learning and the pathway toward assessment. Again, whatever assessment strategies you have should ultimately target a competency. Your competency should ultimately target your program or the standards that are in your program or some of the other high-level pieces that are part of that program as well. And then you can deliver and evaluate for effectiveness and continuously improve. Again, finding where the benchmarks are and where maybe areas for improvement are obvious within assessment or learning. So competencies are fed by the things that drive what goes in your program. The industry requirements, external standards, accreditation requirements, all of those pieces are critical in the beginning of your design for courses and even programs. We like to say that outcomes drive learning and assessment, and just based on the model that you've seen, I think you can agree that's what we advocate, and you'll see here in a little bit that's how we design in WIDS as well. There are really 4 key features to designing performance-based learning. The first feature is that the competencies are identified, they're verified, and made public in advance. So earlier I'd shown in Frannie's plan for her course that she had a course outline. Well, the course outline is typically, you might show that on your website. It's available as part of the syllabus, so students should see that what it is they're expected to learn about. And they're part of the course, the official course syllabus. They're identified, they're verified, and they're made public in advance. So there's no surprises as to what's in this particular course. All the content decisions that you make, what you teach, what you assess, are based on those competencies. And then feature number 2 is primary evidence that the learner has mastered that competency. We're going to see that through performance standards, which are also stated and made public in advance. They're approved, they're developed by maybe a set of faculty so that they agree that this is what we're going to look for as an assessment strategy for that particular outcome, and here are the measurables that we want to look at, whether it's a paper or a clinical experience or some other kind of a project or even an exam. Learners should never have to wonder what's expected, and they are assessed against the preset standards for performance, not against others. And so here again are those assessments that we're talking about, targeting that competency, ultimately addressing those higher level performance pieces. And then the 4th feature is that all learning activities or teaching strategies relate back to the competency. Just as the assessments do, so does the learning. And that there's a variety of strategies for multiple types of learners, and they're given periodic feedback, more than maybe just a quiz, although that's certainly an acceptable form of feedback, but there might be other alternative ways to teach something and provide feedback before assessment occurs. Again, just like assessment feeds into the competency or targets it, so does the learning. The learning activities target the learning objectives, which are in a learning plan, which ultimately are targeting a single competency or 2. So generally speaking, the predictors of student learning reflect choices that made during the course design process, thus the reason for having a good design process. So when you design your projects in WIDS, you keep that model in mind, and you'll see as you get into the software that all the pieces touch each other, establishing what your organizational outcomes are up front, designing a program that will target some of those organizational outcomes and link to them or associate to them, and designing courses that fit into programs which ultimately then touch the organizational outcomes or give students an opportunity to be measured on those. All of these pieces, though it looks linear, again, are very holistic and they touch each other. And WIDS is a relational database where you're able to actually see that association occurring. So from the top, we look at our organizational outcomes. Those would be typically a module within WIDS. They would be established up front, kind of what we say locked down or approved, and not ever a moving target. So they can be added to a program, which then ultimately can be added to a course, and you can see the association. Students can actually see how they're building those core abilities or core skills or college-wide outcomes that have been approved by your institution. That happens in our organizational module. Here is one in particular. You can see where they've called them organizational outcomes. Some colleges call them core abilities, but they're typically those life skills or those types of skills that infuse throughout curriculum. We want to be able to show, creditors want to see, where are you using those? How are students being measured on those? How do students see that they're developing those particular skills? And upon exit from the program, was there an assessment of some sort that might have actually captured some of that data? Each outcome, whether it's an organizational outcome or program outcome or a course outcome, will have a set of criteria to demonstrate or to outline what it looks like to have demonstrated integrity or act responsibly, or whatever the outcome statement might be. This is a set of criteria. It was established up front, but it's also then been repurposed into an assessment task with a scoring rubric. So that's kind of, you'll see that throughout program and course design as well. But again, we're at the top here. This organizational outcomes have been established and defined, and then they'll be approved and secure and able to link to your programs and courses. So that once that's done, and usually that happens by a team of people, not every faculty member is part of that. It's done, it's secure, that's our college outcomes, they're posted, they're on our website, we know what they are, we just begin to design our programs, which then allows us to design our courses. In program design, it's very central to the software. So it is the big picture of outcomes and outcome assessment. And you'll see here all of our modules are navigatable across the top. We can manage a project, in this case a program. We can design the components of a program, which are the outcomes, the program description, all of the things that kind of go into designing that program. Then we can establish the courses that are in that program. Those courses become their own database, so it'll be a course database. We can establish assessment tasks for that particular program and even assessment plans for the program. So each module is unique but looks similar in its navigation. So you just click through the tabs and then open the pages that are up here on the left to be able to add the data in there. So once you've established your program, decided what it is, and added basic program information, one of the things that you're going to want to do is associate a set of external standards. Those external standards are typically, if you're accredited in a specific program, it may be those standards that come as part of an accredited institution that can teach that particular program. Those can be added into WIDS through an import feature. You can grab them off a public domain if it's something that's accessible to anyone. And you can add them into WIDS just as they're written, and they'll give you the opportunity to map to your programs and your courses. So you want to make sure you have associate those external standards to your particular program. You're also going to want to relate those high-level core abilities or organizational outcomes to your program. So pull them in, put them in there so that we can begin to map how they fit together with the program and ultimately into the courses. Then you will develop your program outcomes. These are going to be your macro outcomes, higher level skills that point to what a student will be able to do upon exit from your program, and will come with a set of measurables as well. So establishing program outcomes is key to developing a program. These are, you'll notice they all start with an action verb. That's our if we're a performance-based learning model, then we're going to want to point to performance. So again, and I'll show you in a little bit how we do that, But these are outcome statements. If I would have expanded these plus signs, it would show me my performance standards and assessment strategies that would go with that program that have been defined by that faculty person or director of the program. So here again are the program strategies. So here's my outcome statement. Here's the type of strategy that I'm going to use for assessment. And then these are the criteria that I'm going to use in order to make sure that portfolio is really meeting that program outcome. So this, again, is broad. It's high level. Some of these criteria may happen over the multiple courses where you've gathered different kinds of documentation or pieces of the portfolio are developed throughout the courses. But nonetheless, the portfolio is going to be one of the end products to actually show me as a faculty member or program lead, did my student meet that particular outcome? Again, those program outcomes and their criteria can be repurposed in WIDS by developing a scoring guide for a specific assessment task. This is a simple rubric. We can also make that same criteria, turn it into a more complex rubric or multi-columned rubric, depending on what it is that your particular college or organization uses. The rubrics can also appear in the course where they're assigned. So you actually have an opportunity to create your course list and then assign rubrics for the program to the courses that they might develop things for. So the portfolio might be, there may be some assessment tasks in all of these different courses that have the checks in them that would be part of that portfolio's development. So here you can actually associate your program outcome assessment all the way, or assessment task, all the way to the course level. The program module also helps you link program outcomes to other types of outcomes to validate them. So here across the top are all my program outcomes, and down the left I'm actually associating or linking that program outcome to a specific standard. In this case, it's a state standard for paraprofessional standard. So we are able to do some validation that way as well. This is a live matrix, so you're actually able to build it right in WIDS, and then you can also produce documentation to show that analysis for whatever kind of reports or accreditation documents you need. You can also link your organizational outcomes. Again, across the top are my program outcomes. I'd already related my organizational outcomes. Now I can show the connection between the two. Again, this can filter down into the courses that are also going to be part of this program, and then I begin to have a big picture that shows more micro detail. You can build your course list in your program. So each of these is a live link. It'll actually let you open up the course here and see some of the details about the course, credits, course descriptions, course numbers, that kind of thing. This course list can be part of your program's configuration, so you can configure this list by semester or by certification if you have some laddered certificates in your programs. You can also look at the relationship to the program that each of these courses have. Child courses belong to the program. They're usually owned by the program. Changes to it are made by the program, faculty or director. And then there are associated program courses, which are courses that might be used by multiple programs, and they're owned by some other program. And in this instance, it's speech, so it's probably owned by the Gen Ed program. Yet speech is a requirement for lots of programs, and so it's an associated course in this particular list, which means it may not actually get any program outcomes linked to it. Or it might, it just depends. Or it might not have any of the core abilities linked to it because those were established elsewhere. So the child courses, however, would. So you have that ability to kind of further detail the course list once you establish it. You can assign program outcomes to your courses. So once I have my courses across the top in the database, I already had my program outcomes. I can actually begin to assign those outcomes. Where are they being introduced? Where is this program outcome being introduced? Where is it being practiced, and where is it being assessed? I have the ability to actually show some level relationships here And then when it comes to finally assessing these program outcomes, I can look to see that practicum 2 assessment strategy. Is it a portfolio? Is it the clinical experience? Where am I able to actually assess that these program outcomes are being met? And here it's telling me it's in this practicum 2 course. You're able to set your own levels drop downs. So if you want to say introduce, practice, assessed, or introduce, enforce, evaluate, you can change the drop down list. You can simply put a check mark by it, or some other kind of marker that's unique to your institution that you've currently been using that wouldn't be unfamiliar to your faculty when they do this kind of work. So here they're assigning college-wide outcomes to these particular courses. And again, it would be hard to say that you're introducing Communicate Clearly in this program, because Communicate Clearly is infused throughout all kinds of programs and curriculum. So all you're doing here is just showing that association between your course and the core ability. Students will have an opportunity to demonstrate or use that particular ability in that particular course. You can map your standards. So mapping, curriculum mapping, big buzzword, everybody needs them for lots of different things, for creditors, for your own continuous improvement plans, for collecting data. Here we see external standards mapped to the courses in a program. So you can see that you're addressing everything that you need to address, and that there's going to be an opportunity for learning and assessment to target those standards. So that's kind of your program. Your big picture has been designed. We've already got our organizational outcomes in place. Everything's been mapped at the program level and established. Courses have been designed. The database is started. And now it's time to design them individually. Again, a program or a course has someone who is in charge of developing it, a site administrator, or maybe some other kind of administrative role in your site would be assign that person the role. So in this case, the instructional assistant program has been given, I have, or whoever's come into this particular site and logged in, am the project developer for that, which means I have the ability to make changes to it, to edit it, to seek approval for it, and review for it. Some of the projects I'm working on, some courses, I'm a reviewer for it. And that means I'm looking at it for some final approval, for pending final approval. So I've made some comments on it, and the developer of that would want to go in and see what kind of review comments have been made. I may be one of multiple reviewers on that particular project. And the good part about it is once it's in a pending approval stage, it's not a moving target. So more edits cannot occur in that particular project because it's locked down until it's either taken out of pending approval and it's back on the docket for a work in progress, or it's been considered active, at which time it would no longer be editable either. So coming into the software, knowing your role and immediately accessing it are key to kind of seamless development of course design. Competencies are just like program outcomes. They're designed a performance-based learning model using verbs. All of our verbs here are in the Bloom's, in our library. We have a verb library that actually is associated with Bloom's taxonomy and levels of learning. You can either write your own outcomes. You can import outcomes from a text. So if you have a Word file of your courses, you can just upload the list of competencies or learning outcomes or whatever you call them, and they will automatically populate into the different rows of data. Or you can import them from another WIDS file that might use a couple of the same competencies in another course and just pull all of that in. You'll notice that designing the competency is a packet. Again, it comes with a set of performance standards and a set of learning objectives in order to make the package complete. What they're going to do, how they're going to do it, and how they're going to learn it. So here we see that the competencies here are written. They're tied to the domain and level of learning, so that all of that's been established, and they are really the heart of your learning and assessment. Let's see here. I've already done that. Okay, the verb library, we have I think we have 700 verbs in our verb library. So if your faculty are new to this, if you're trying to teach them about performance-based learning and designing good outcomes that are measurable, then the verb library is awesome. You can filter by keyword, you can filter by domain, or even domain and level of learning. And it will show you a drop-down list of all kinds of verbs to begin your statements. Ultimately, those verbs are going to probably point you right to an assessment strategy. So the built-in design tools that we have in WIDS, there are multiple kinds of libraries and repurposed data that are free for your use and ease in designing programs and courses. Some of the libraries might be an academic skills library, our learning activities library. We have a grading information, a policy and guideline library. Each of these have multiple types of data in there that you just can pop into your course and then revise it a little bit to fit your need, and even save it as part of your custom libraries that you want to add to your own library or you want to use all the time. So libraries are a cool piece of the software, already there for you to use. I already mentioned that competencies are designed as a package, but when I go back there, let me do that. So we have a competency statement, and we're going to build those performance standards and learning objectives. So once you get to that performance standard, you might say, well, what strategies would I want to use? We also have a learning, a performance standard or performance assessment library. So this particular library would actually let you look at different kinds of strategies, and it would provide the details about what those strategies are, directions to a learner, what the criteria would be, and then you can massage them to fit your own specific competencies requirements. So it's just there to be a helpmate to faculty as they design their courses. Again, just like in program outcomes, a competency would have an assessment strategy. You can access that assessment strategy from a library, or you can just put in your own assessment strategy, and then it would come with a set of criteria. If you pulled it in from the library and you chose summary paper, then the summary criteria would come in with it immediately. It just automatically populates. And then you can, again, tweak it or massage it to fit the needs of your particular strategy and your competency. A competency does set the stage for learning. So once you've established your competency framework with your competency, your criteria, your objectives, or the benchmarks, the stair steps of learning that and content or principles, processes that students need to learn about in order to be successful in that particular assessment, then you can set those things set the stage for learning, and you're ready to build a learning plan. WIDS allows you to build learning plans in the software, and they can be printed, they can be packaged, they can be uploaded into an LMS. There's a lot of different ways to use learning plans. When you establish your learning plans, you develop them as your learning plans. So my learning plans mean the ones that I design, and then I have the ability to just kind of play with them, massage them, and then share them with others on my faculty team, others in the college, so that they can use it and copy it and make one for themselves. So learning plans tend to be personal unless you've been paid to develop a learning plan. Then it's automatically shared, and it may be part of the course's course outline. It may be part of the course and go with it. A learning plan typically targets one or more competencies. Those have already been written. Those have already got their packages ready to go. Now we need to develop the plans to go with them. So we've targeted a learning or competency in our plan. Then we want to build our activities. You probably already have great activities, but if you're stumped and you want to use a learning cycle, or you want to consider learning styles, or all kinds of filters, as you can see, learning cycle, learning multiple intelligence, the function or the group size, you can filter this learning activities library in WIDS to showcase anything and give you some examples of good statements to use. And again, you can massage them once you've imported them into your course. So our Learning Activity Library has over 400 different kinds of activity ideas. Again, they can be filtered by learning cycle, multiple intelligence, or style. Once your learning plans have been developed, or as you're developing them, you may have some documents that you want to upload and that go with them, the worksheets that you reference, or the PowerPoints maybe that you've designed. You can link those particular resources right into the learning plan so that they become a hyperlink. The document has its own URL because the documents area in WIDS allows you to store documents, and you can then create or take that URL and pop it right into your learning activity so that it's a live link right to this document. You can change this document, upload or save over it, edit it, change it, and it never changes the URL so that students have access to the right version at all times. So that's a really slick piece in the software. So in the learning materials, you have the ability to upload and link documents that support your learning activities. Here's that URL I referenced, and then you can see here it becomes a hyperlink, you know, in the activity. So read the handout, they click on the link, and that goes directly to the documents area in WIDS where that particular document has been stored. So that is a very cool feature in our software, at least I think. The same goes for assessment tasks. So you can develop my performance assessment tasks, begin to develop them. Only you see them. And then once they're more established and you like how they are and you're ready to share them, you have the ability to share those assessment tasks and share those learning plans with other faculty who teach this particular course, which is so nice for adjuncts. They don't know sometimes what to do or where things are. This gives them a beautiful picture of what's going on and how other teachers teach and assess particular outcomes. Another cool thing is it's when you're in the assessment task or any area in the software, it produces, it takes that data that you've added into this, this robust database and creates beautiful documentation. Here you see an assessment task. It's targeting that same competency we've seen over and over again in learning and other areas, and then it's creating an actual assessment or an assignment with directions, who's going to evaluate it. Oftentimes they come with them, well, here they have a scoring standard and a rating scale. Those can be easily customized to meet whatever it is you use at your college or your institution or your classroom. And so you set the stage of what that's going to look like. But the criteria have already been written. Those are written as part of the competency. And so you can then add that criteria right to your scoring guide and make your ratings appear as a rubric or even a checklist. So it's a beautiful way to take that data and pull it out of the software and create documentation. So whether it's a learning plan or a course syllabus or a curriculum map, there's tons of documentation that come out of the software. Here again is that guide, and here it is as the same criteria in multi-column rubric. You can then, I've mentioned that you can share learning plans and assessment tasks, meaning that other faculty or people who want to see it can access it within their organization. You can also then, once a learning plan has been approved or looked at or it's ready to be, you know, you might have been paid for to write it or develop it as a faculty member, and you want to make it as part of the official approved course, you can actually consider it a course learning plan or a course performance assessment task, so that when you print out your course outline or your course outcome summary is what WIDS typically calls it, it not only has all those competencies and performance standards, descriptions and credits, but course learning plans and assessment tasks too. So it's a nice package, very easy to read, very usable, user-friendly as well. And it's not a moving target. It's approved. It cannot be edited until someone has that ability to edit it. So that's the quick and dirty tour of designing programs and courses. So in a nutshell, WIDS is web-based. Each site is unique in its look, its roles, its permissions, established by you. You can design your programs and your courses using the best practices of performance-based learning. You can use our built-in libraries of reusable data however you would like. It is relational, so pieces at the top fit pieces in your course and vice versa. You have mapping capabilities for all kinds of outcomes, documentation for students, for faculty, for administration, for creditors. You have a document storage area that's web-based. You are able to archive and submit documentation for archiving. Archiving also includes the history. And we are also API, so integrating to other kinds of software with API or other kinds or web-based software with API. Even integration into LMS can occur using API. And we're working on that LMS capability now. So hopefully in the future that will be part of an option that WIDS can offer. So those are in a nutshell what we have to be able to design programs and courses. So thanks for your coming. You can learn a lot more about designing, aligning, and managing in WIDS. We have other webinars coming up to be more specific. I had just done one on aligning about a month ago. So you might want to look at that video to just see how that's done. It focuses more on curriculum mapping and assessment planning. You're able to do a free trial for 30 days, which allows you to develop a course, but just basically use the performance-based model to design and get familiar with how user-friendly and intuitive the software is. And you can also request a customized webinar. So you're able to actually either email me or call me, or you can go right online and customize a webinar for just your college, which would be, you know, a go-to meeting. So we can talk and you can ask questions. You can say, show me this, and you'll have that ability to do so. So that's it. I hope I didn't take up too much time of your day and that you got some good things out of this. Any questions that I can answer? Just add it to the question area and then raise your hand. I'm not even seeing the question area. Not sure. All right, everything was clear, Dan. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, well then, y'all have a great day. Thank you for attending, and I'll be in touch. I'll provide you a link to the web session. If you want to share it with another colleague, you can. And maybe we'll talk to you more about WIDS soon. Thank you so much. Have a great day.